Hello everyone! The 2024 Chess Olympiad in Budapest is over, with India as an absolute champion, winning gold in both events, going nearly undefeated on all boards with only one loss, but going undefeated overall in all 11 rounds of play, with 10 wins and 1 draw against Uzbekistan. On board 1 played the phenomenal 18-year-old Domaraju Gukesh, who is also a world champion candidate, who will play against the reigning world champion Ding Liren this November. Ding even refused to play against Gukesh on board 1 during the matches between India and China. Gukesh had 9 points out of the possible 10 on board 1 during this Olympiad, which I think is the best result on board 1 out of any Olympiad. He also won the individual gold medal for the best result on board 1. Today, we'll be taking a look at the match from the final round of the Olympiad, where India played against Slovenia, with Vladimir Fedoseev playing for Slovenia at board 1, who actually won against Magnus Carlsen a few rounds before this one. Fedoseev was white and opened with d4. Gukesh follows with knight to e6. Next move here is bishop to d4, d5, e3, the London system. Black plays c5, then knight to f3, knight to c6, knight to b2, the classic moves of the London system. Next is bishop to g4, then c3. Now that the bishop is out, next is e6, which is maybe the best move for black against the London system. Next for Fedoseev is queen to a4, tying the knight and even threatening it at f5. Gukesh immediately plays d7, making the knight at c6 not tied anymore and leaving space for potential future moves such as f6 or attacking the center with e5. Fedoseev plays bishop to b5, attacking the c6 knight from two sides, who Gukesh defends with queen to c8, rook to c1, a6, Fedoseev takes c6, Gukesh takes with his queen, then the two trade their queens. Fedoseev opts for c4 now, putting some pressure on the center. Gukesh responds with f6, preventing the knight from moving to e5 and preparing an e5 move of his own as we said. Knight to b3, Gukesh immediately plays a5, threatening with a4 and pushing the knight away from b3. h3 is the next move, bishop to f5, king e2, and they're slowly entering the end game of this match. The king is safe here despite being in the center. a4 pushing the knight away, who retreats to d2, Gukesh plays h5, preventing g4 from attacking his bishop. Fedoseev plays bishop to g3, bishop e7, rook c3, wanting to have double rooks at the c line and put further pressure on the center. King f7, rook c1, naturally Gukesh follows with rook to c8, and now Fedoseev takes the c5 pawn. Now capturing the bishop here is possible, but Gukesh first wants to take the center with e5. Gukesh now has a full center, which was his idea, but he sacrifices a pawn here. How? Here takes d5. Of course, then d5. While the pawn at c5 is attacked from three sides here, it is also defended by both rooks. But with c6, white keeps the advantage in pawns here. Knight b6, a3 preventing black from moving there, rook a5, attempting to move to b5 and try to attack the pawn at b2, who can be protected due to the bishop, who attacks the white squares. In this position, black has one pawn less, but take a look at white's figures now. Both knights here have no good moves to move towards, while the g3 bishop is blocked off. Despite the pawn in advantage, white here is in a much worse position. The chess engines suggest a bishop sacrifice for two pawns as the best possible move here. The game after that move would proceed something like this. Now here, white would have his knights in good positions, protecting the pawn at c6, but he would have one piece less. It just shows how bad of a position white is in here, that the computer suggests a sacrifice of a bishop just for white to have some potential plays. It's not for sacrifice, but instead plays knight to e1, defending the b2 pawn by moving the knight to d3. Next up is d4. Now every one of white's figures is under pressure, and the king is in the center, with Gukesh's goal being to open the center, trading the pawns at d4 while attacking the rook, who moves to c2 and protects the pawn. But the knight is now tight. Gukesh now plays a very important move. I'll give you some time to guess which move it is. If you said rook to e8, congratulations, that's the right answer. Here, black threatens a check, but white cannot move his king because the d3 knight hangs, who also cannot be moved as the rook would hang then. White here plays knight to f3, then rook to b3, which both ties and attacks the knight. White protects it by moving the other knight to e1. And now, the winning move, bishop to b4. King retreats to f1. Now, despite the knight hanging twice, it's not wise to take it, as the b4 bishop would hang instead. First, Gukesh takes at e1. If white takes with the rook, the knight falls. If he takes with the knight, which he does, now the rook is exposed and the quality falls. Knight to c2, then d3, knight to e3, Gukesh takes at b2 and now c7, aiming for a promotion at the open line, which Gukesh blocks with the knight to c8, h4, and now rook to a2. Now white cannot defend the a3 pawn, not with the rook because it would be mate, nor with the knight because of the pawn or rook to c2, where black would win rook in advantage and have a totally winning position. White plays bishop to f4. Gukesh takes the pawn and now has two open pawns. Next is g3, rook to b3 to open the way for his pawn, knight c4, rook e6 to support the advancing pawn, knight to d2 attacks the rook b2, rook c3, rook a6. Now white can't take the pawn as it would end in the promotion of the a-line pawn, and Gukesh would have even more advantage with the queen back in the game. White plays a3 instead. Next is rook c2, knight e4, king g6, king g2, knight f7, king f3, knight d5 attacks the bishop, now a tricky knight to c3. The last trick of white. If black takes the knight, white promotes the pawn, but if he takes with the rook, once again the figures are lost, a potential promotion, and white would manage to defend in time and a draw would be on the way. But Gukesh sacrifices his knight, then moves to d2, threatening both the knight and a promotion, which makes white play e2, now a check, pushing the king to d1, now Gukesh plays rook to b2, at which point Vladimir Fedoseev surrenders in the 48th move. An amazing play of Gukesh here, deserving of his undefeated status at the first board of the world's best competition, completely proving his talent and class to the entire world, and establishing himself as the favorite for the title of world champion. The only way for white here to defend the mate is knight to e2, but then rook to b1 check, which forces the king to capture the pawn, otherwise it would be promotion and mate, b2 check, then the knight falls, threatening to capture and defend the a4 pawn. If white takes check, then check and the bishop hangs, then the pawn falls and black would both have quality and advantage, and this would be a truly won position, hence why Fedoseev surrendered. If you like this match analysis, make sure to leave a like on the video, share it with a friend and subscribe to our channel as it helps us deliver more quality chess content for you to enjoy. Have a nice day and see you in the next one.